The unexpected alliance. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Zara as she gazed through the reinforced viewport of Starbase Epsilon. The human engineer sighed, her breath slightly fogging the transparent material separating her from the cosmic void. It had been 6 months since she'd volunteered for this assignment, to be the lone human representative on an alien space station. The novelty had worn off quickly, replaced by a gnawing sense of isolation. Zara's reverie was interrupted by a commotion behind her. Turning, she saw a small, avian-like creature darting between the legs of the towering, multi-limbed Xarthan security officers. Its iridescent feathers shimmered as it dodged grasping tentacles, letting out high-pitched chirps that sounded suspiciously like curses. Without thinking, Zara stepped into the creature's path, crouching down and opening her arms. The little alien, no bigger than a Terran housecat, didn't hesitate. It leaped into her embrace, trembling against her chest. "What seems to be the problem here?" Zara asked, standing to face the approaching Xarthans. The lead officer's tentacles writhed in agitation. "The Pix is in a restricted area without authorization. It must be detained and processed according to station protocols." Zara looked down at the frightened alien in her arms. Its large, liquid eyes met hers, filled with a desperation that transcended species barriers. "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding," she said, her mind racing. "This Pix is my personal assistant. I must have forgotten to file the proper paperwork for his clearance." The Xarthan's eye stalks swiveled skeptically. "We have no record of humans utilizing Pix assistance. It's a new cultural exchange program," Zora lied smoothly, "to foster better interspecies relations. I'd be happy to file the necessary forms right away." After a tense moment, the security officer's tentacles relaxed slightly. "Very well, human Zora. You have 1 solar cycle to submit the correct documentation. Ensure your assistant does not access any further restricted areas." As the Xarthans retreated, Zora let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The pikes in her arms chittered softly, its feathers gradually smoothing. "Okay, little one," Zara whispered. "Want to tell me what that was really about?" To her surprise, the Pix responded in halting but understandable galactic standard. "I am Clix. Thank you for saving me, human Zora. I need help. My family is in danger, and no one else will listen." Zara's eyebrows shot up. She glanced around the busy corridor, then made a decision. "Come on, Clix. Let's go somewhere we can talk privately." In her quarters, Zora set Clix down on her desk. The little alien hopped from foot to foot, agitation clear in every movement. "Please, you must help. My nestmates, they are sick. Very sick. But the station medics, they say it is nothing. Send us away." "But I know. I feel it. They are dying." Zara frowned. "Slow down, Clix. What kind of sickness? And why won't the medics help?" Clix's feathers ruffled in distress. "It started after we passed through the Cerulean Nebula. At first, just tiredness. Then pain, weakness. Now, they cannot even fly. The medics say it is normal reaction to nebula radiation, will pass. But it does not pass. It gets worse." A chill ran down Zora's spine. She'd heard rumors about the Cerulean Nebula, whispers of strange phenomena affecting certain species, but the Galactic Council had dismissed such stories as superstition. "Where is your family now, Clix?" "In quarantine sector. They say it is for our protection. But I think they do not want others to see how sick my people are becoming." Zara's mind raced. If Clix was right, this could be a major cover-up. But why? And more importantly, how could she help? "Clix, I'm not a doctor. I'm an engineer. I'm not sure how much help I can be." The little alien's eyes seemed to grow even larger. "But you are human. Everyone knows humans can do impossible things. Please, human Zora, you are my only hope." Zara ran a hand through her short-cropped hair, weighing the risks. Interfering in alien medical matters was strictly against regulations. She could lose her position, maybe even face criminal charges. But as she looked at Clix's pleading face, she knew she couldn't turn away. "All right," she said finally. "I can't promise miracles, but I'll do what I can. Tell me everything you know about this sickness, and we'll figure out a plan." As Clix began to explain in more detail, Zara felt a familiar spark of excitement. This was why she'd come to Starbase Epsilon in the first place. To make a difference, to push boundaries. She might not be able to cure an alien disease, but she'd be damned if she didn't try. Little did Zara know that her decision to help one small alien would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything she thought she knew about the universe and humanity's place in it. Breaking the rules. Zara's quarters hummed with the low buzz of alien technology as she pored over the station schematics displayed on her holographic interface. Clix perched on her shoulder, occasionally chittering nervous suggestions. "The quarantine sector is here," Zara muttered, highlighting a section of the map. "But security protocols are tight. We can't just walk in." Clix's feathers ruffled in agitation. "But we must. My family, they suffer." Zara nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. "I know, Clix. We'll find a way." She zoomed in on the maintenance tunnels running throughout the station. A plan began to form in her mind. Risky, definitely illegal, but possible. "Okay, little buddy," she said, turning to face the anxious Pix. "I think I have an idea. But you need to understand, this is going to be dangerous. If we're caught, the consequences will be severe. Are you sure you want to do this?" Clix's large eyes met hers, filled with determination. "For my family, I would face the void itself." Zara couldn't help but smile. "All right then, let's do this." Over the next few hours, Zara put her plan into motion. She requisitioned maintenance equipment under the guise of routine repairs, slipping small medical scanners and emergency treatment kits into the toolbox. Using her engineering clearance, she accessed the station's ventilation system controls, programming a series of subtle malfunctions that would require investigation. As the station's day cycle dimmed into artificial night, Zara and Clix made their move. The human wore her standard-issue EVA suit, modified with a special harness to secure Clix. They slipped into a maintenance shaft, Zora's helmet lights illuminating the cramped passageway. "Remember the plan," Zara whispered as they crawled through the tunnels. "If we're discovered, I'm doing an emergency inspection. You're my new assistant, authorized but not yet in the system due to bureaucratic delays. Stick to that story no matter what." Clix chirped in affirmative, clinging tightly to Zora's suit. They had almost reached the access point to the quarantine sector when a sudden alarm blared through the tunnel. Red emergency lights began to flash, and Zara's heart sank. "Alert! Unauthorized access detected in Maintenance Sector 7G security teams en route. All personnel remain in place for identification checks." "Shit," Zara hissed. "They're onto us. We need to move. Fast." She picked up the pace, scrambling through the tunnel with reckless speed. They burst out of an access hatch just as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from around the corner. "Halt! Identify yourselves," a booming voice commanded. Zara spun around, placing herself between Clix and the approaching security team. She raised her hands, trying to project calm confidence. "At ease, officers. Engineering Chief Zara conducting emergency systems check. We've had reports of life support fluctuations in this sector." The lead security officer, a towering Drazak with gleaming scales, narrowed his compound eyes. "We have no record of scheduled maintenance in this area. That's why it's an emergency check," Zara countered smoothly. "The alert just came in. Would you rather we wait for proper paperwork while risking a potential life support failure?" The Drazak's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Your credentials, human." Zara's mind raced. Her actual clearance wouldn't get her into this sector. She needed a distraction. Fast. Suddenly, Clicks let out a piercing shriek. The security team stumbled back, startled by the unexpected noise. In that moment of confusion, Zara made her move. She slammed her fist onto a nearby control panel, triggering the emergency containment protocols she had covertly programmed earlier. Blast doors slammed shut, separating them from the security team. "Sorry about this," Zara shouted through the door. "Station safety protocols. I'll file a full report once the emergency is handled." Without waiting for a response, she scooped up Clicks and sprinted down the corridor. Alarms blared around them as they raced towards the quarantine sector. "That was too close," Zara panted as they finally reached their destination. "But we made it. Now, let's find your family." The quarantine area was eerily quiet, the stark white corridors a sharp contrast to the chaos they'd left behind. Zara's modified scanner picked up life signs behind one of the sealed doors. "Here," she whispered to Clicks. "I think this is it." Using her engineering override codes, Zara bypassed the door's security. It slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a dimly lit room. Inside, a group of pigs huddled together, their once vibrant feathers now dull and lifeless. Clicks let out a soft, mournful trill. "My family. They are so weak." Zara's heart clenched at the sight. She'd known it was bad, but seeing the suffering firsthand was something else entirely. She pushed aside her emotions, focusing on the task at hand. "Okay, Clicks. I need you to translate for me. I'm going to scan them and see if I can figure out what's wrong." As Zara worked, using her cobbled-together medical equipment, she became increasingly frustrated. The symptoms didn't match any known disease in her database. It was as if the Pix's very life force was being drained away. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, reviewing the scan data. "It's almost like—" Wait a minute. A wild theory began to form in her mind. "Clicks, you said this started after passing through the Cerulean Nebula, right?" The little alien nodded vigorously. I think your people might be reacting to some kind of energy signature from the nebula. Something that's interfering with your natural bioelectric field." Clicks tilted his head, confused. "But why only us? Why not other species?" Zara's mind raced through possibilities. "Your feathers. They're iridescent, right? What if they're not just for show? What if they act as some kind of natural energy conductor?" She began pacing, her excitement growing as the pieces fell into place. The nebula's energy signature must be on a frequency that resonates with your biology. It's overloading your systems like a power surge frying delicate electronics. Clicks's eyes widened with understanding. "But how do we fix it?" Zara grinned, the thrill of problem-solving pushing aside her earlier fears. "We need to create a counter-frequency, something to cancel out the nebula's effect and restore your people's natural balance." She turned back to her equipment, fingers flying over the controls as she reconfigured her tools. "It's a long shot, but if I can modify this scanner to emit the right kind of energy pulse." A loud bang on the sealed door interrupted her work. "Security override in progress," an automated voice announced. "Stand clear of the entrance." Zara's heart raced. They were out of time. "Clicks, get your family ready to move. We might have to make a run for it." The little alien chirped in distress, but hurried to gather his weakened kin. Zara worked frantically, pushing her improvised device to its limits. Just as the door began to slide open, she let out a triumphant shout. "Got it. Clicks, tell everyone to brace themselves. This might feel weird." She activated the device, flooding the room with a pulsing energy field. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the pigs began to stir. Their feathers regained some of their luster, and weak chirps filled the air. Zara laughed in disbelief. "It's working. It's actually—" Her celebration was cut short as a stun blast sizzled past her head. Station security poured into the room, weapons raised. "Step away from the aliens and surrender immediately," the Drazak commander ordered. Zara raised her hand slowly, mind racing for a way out of this mess. But as she looked around at the recovering Pix, at Clix's grateful expression, she realized something important. She might be in trouble, but she'd done the right thing. She'd made a difference. And isn't that why she'd come to this station in the first place? With a defiant grin, Zara turned to face the security team. "Gentlemen," she said, "I think we need to have a conversation about the true nature of this quarantine, and about how humanity just saved your feathered friends here from a fate worse than death." The Drazek's compound eyes narrowed, but Zara could see a flicker of uncertainty. She pressed her advantage. "You can arrest me if you want. But first, I think your superiors might be interested in hearing about the cover-up going on in this sector, about how a natural phenomenon is being ignored at the cost of innocent lives." A tense silence filled the room. Then, unexpectedly, one of the other security officers spoke up. "Commander, I think we should listen to what the human has to say." Zara's grin widened. It wasn't freedom, not yet. But it was a start. As Clix hopped onto her shoulder, chittering excitedly, she knew that whatever came next, she'd face it head-on. After all, she was human, and humans had a knack for doing the impossible. The leap of faith. The tension in the quarantine sector was palpable as Zara faced down the security team. The Drazak commander's mandibles clicked in agitation, his compound eyes darting between the human engineer and the recovering Pix. "Explain yourself, human," he growled. Quickly. Zara took a deep breath, acutely aware of Clix trembling on her shoulder. "Commander, what's happening here goes beyond station regulations. We're dealing with a phenomenon that could affect countless species across the galaxy." She gestured to her improvised device. "The Cerulean Nebula is emitting an energy signature that's deadly to the Pix. Probably to other species too. We just haven't seen the effects yet. This quarantine isn't protecting anyone. It's covering up a massive problem." The commander's scales shifted colors, a sign of internal conflict. "These are serious allegations, Engineer Zara. If true, why hasn't the council been informed?" "Politics," Zara spat. "Or fear. Maybe both. But right now, that doesn't matter. What matters is saving lives and preventing this from spreading." A tense silence fell over the room. Then, unexpectedly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The commander's communicator crackled to life. "All security personnel to emergency stations. We have multiple hull breaches in sectors 12 through 15. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." The Drazek's eyes widened in shock. "Impossible. Those sectors are nowhere near any asteroid fields or shipping lanes." A cold dread settled in Zara's stomach. "Unless, Commander, those sectors border the Cerulean Nebula, don't they?" The realization hit them both simultaneously. The nebula's energy wasn't just affecting living beings, it was eating away at the station itself. "We need to evacuate," Zara said urgently. "Now." The commander hesitated for only a moment before nodding sharply. "Agreed. But this isn't over, human. You'll answer for your actions once we're safe." As chaos erupted around them, Zara turned to Clix and his family. "Can you fly? We need to move fast." Clix chittered nervously. We will try. But we are still weak." Zara's mind raced. The nearest evacuation point was several levels away, through increasingly unstable sections of the station. They'd never make it in time with the Pikes in their current state. An idea struck her, crazy, reckless, but possibly their only chance. "Commander," she called out, "is there a maintenance airlock near here? One that leads to the station's exterior?" The Drazek eyed her suspiciously. "Yes, but it's not rated for evacuation procedures. What are you planning, human?" Zara grinned, a manic glint in her eye. "Something incredibly stupid. But it might just save us all." Minutes later, Zara stood before the maintenance airlock, her EVA suit sealed and checked. The Pix huddled around her, their iridescent feathers shimmering with nervous energy. Flix perched on her shoulder, refusing to leave her side. "This is insanity," the Draza commander growled, overseeing the impromptu operation. "You'll never make it to the emergency shuttles in time." "Maybe not," Zora admitted, "but we have to try. The nebula's energy is interfering with the station's systems. The evacuation routes might already be compromised. This way, we have a straight shot to the shuttle bay." She knelt down, addressing the pigs directly. "I know you're scared, but your people are natural spacefarers. Your ancestors navigated the stars long before they had ships. You can do this." Clicks translated her words, and a ripple of determination passed through the group. One by one, the pigs began to glow, their feathers taking on an otherworldly luminescence. Zara's eyes widened in awe. "Bioluminescence, of course. You use it to communicate in space." Clicks chirped affirmatively. "We will guide you, human Zora, as you have guided us." With a final nod to the commander, Zora activated the airlock sequence. As the door slid open, revealing the star-studded void beyond, she took a deep breath. "Here goes nothing," she muttered, and stepped into space. The initial disorientation was overwhelming. Without the station's artificial gravity, Zora's sense of up and down vanished. She flailed for a moment, her suit's thrusters sputtering as she tried to stabilize herself. Then, like a flock of ethereal birds, the pigs surrounded her. Their glowing bodies formed a protective cocoon, their movements guiding her through the darkness. Clicks remained perched on her shoulder, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what she realized was a form of communication with his kin. Together, they began their perilous journey across the station's exterior. Zara's heads-up display showed the location of the emergency shuttle bay. But the path there was fraught with danger. Debris from the damaged sectors floated around them, some pieces as large as small shuttles. "Watch out!" Zora cried as a jagged piece of hull plating hurtled towards them. The pigs scattered, their agile bodies easily avoiding the debris. But Zora, encumbered by her bulky suit, couldn't move fast enough. At the last second, Clicks leaped from her shoulder. The little alien's body glowed intensely as it collided with the debris, sending it spinning off course. Zora gasped in relief, reaching out to catch her tiny savior. "Clicks, are you all right?" The pigs chirped weakly but affirmatively. Zara clutched him close, marveling at the creature's bravery. "Thank you," she whispered. "I owe you one." They pressed on, weaving through the treacherous obstacle course of twisted metal and sparking circuitry. The station groaned around them, the nebula's corrosive energy eating away at its structure. Halfway to their destination, disaster struck. A violent tremor shook the station, and Zora's suit suddenly blared with warnings. "Oxygen recycler malfunction," the computerized voice announced. "Switching to emergency reserves. Estimated time remaining 10 minutes. Panic threatened to overwhelm her. They were still at least 15 minutes from the shuttle bay. No, Zora muttered, frantically trying to bypass the damaged systems. Clicks, sensing her distress, began to trill softly. The other pigs gathered closer, their bodies pulsing with an increasingly intense light. To Zora's amazement, she felt a warmth spreading through her suit, and the oxygen warning suddenly silenced. "How?" she breathed in wonder. Clicks's voice sounded in her mind, clearer than ever before. "We share our energy with you, human Zora, as you shared yours with us." Tears pricked at Zora's eyes, overwhelming gratitude filling her heart. "Thank you," she whispered. "All of you." With renewed determination, they pressed on. The shuttle bay loomed before them, a beacon of hope in the chaotic void. But as they approached, Zora's heart sank. The bay doors were sealed shut, emergency force fields shimmering across the entrance. "No," she cried in frustration. "We're so close." Clicks chirped urgently, pointing towards a small maintenance hatch near the bay doors. It was barely large enough for Zora to squeeze through, let alone in her bulky EVA suit. "It's too small," she said, despair creeping into her voice. "We can't." But Clicks was already moving. The little alien pressed itself against the hatch's control panel, its body glowing with intense concentration. To Zara's astonishment, the panel sparked to life, and the hatch began to slide open. "Clicks, you're a genius," she laughed in relief. One by one, the pics darted through the opening. Zara took a deep breath, preparing to remove her helmet. It was risky. The air might be thin or contaminated, but it was their only chance. Just as she reached for the helmet release, another violent tremor shook the station. The hatch began to close, emergency protocols overriding Clicks's hack. Without hesitation, Zara grabbed Clicks and shoved him through the narrowing gap. "Go," she shouted. "Get your people to safety." Clicks's anguished cry was cut off as the hatch slammed shut, leaving Zara alone in the void. She floated there, staring at the sealed hatch, a strange calm settling over her. She'd done it. She'd saved them. It wasn't how she'd imagined her grand space adventure ending, but at least she'd made a difference. As her oxygen reserves dwindled, Zara closed her eyes, thinking of Earth, of home, of all the impossible things humanity had achieved throughout history. Maybe, just maybe, she'd managed to add one more impossible feat to that list. Suddenly, a familiar trill reached her ears. Zara's eyes snapped open to see Clicks, somehow back outside, his tiny body pressed against her helmet. He wasn't alone. Dozens of pics surrounded her, their bodies glowing with an intensity that rivaled the stars themselves. As one, they began to push against her suit, guiding her towards something. Zara blinked in disbelief. A shimmering portal had appeared in space, its edges crackling with otherworldly energy. Clicks's voice echoed in her mind. "We open the way, human Zara, as our ancestors did. Trust us." With the last of her strength, Zara nodded. Together, human and Pix, they plunged into the unknown depths of the portal. In a flash of blinding light, they emerged inside the shuttle bay. Zara collapsed to the floor, gasping as her helmet automatically retracted. Around her, the Pix fluttered and chirped in triumph. Alarms blared, and confused shouts filled the air as station personnel rushed to make sense of their impossible arrival. But Zara barely noticed. She was too busy laughing, tears streaming down her face as she hugged Clicks close. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." As medical teams surrounded them and evacuation procedures kicked into high gear, Zara knew that nothing would ever be the same. She had witnessed the impossible, had been part of something greater than herself. And somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of space, the Cerulean Nebula pulsed with energy. A challenge waiting to be overcome, a mystery begging to be solved. Zara grinned. Whatever came next, she was ready for it. After all, she was human, and humans had a knack for doing the impossible. Race against time. The emergency shuttle bay was a cacophony of blaring alarms and frantic activity. Medical teams swarmed around Zara and the Pix, their expressions a mix of confusion and awe. The human engineer sat on the cold metal floor, still breathless from their impossible journey through space. "Ma'am, are you all right? Can you hear me?" A concerned medic waved a scanner over Zara's body. She nodded, her voice hoarse. "I'm fine. Check the Pikes first. They've been through hell." As the medical team turned their attention to the alien birds, a familiar figure pushed through the crowd. The Drazak security commander's scales shimmered with an array of colors Zara couldn't quite interpret. "You," he hissed, mandibles clicking rapidly. "How did you? This is impossible." Zara couldn't help but grin. "Impossible seems to be the word of the day, Commander, but we don't have time for explanations right now." The station. As if on cue, a violent tremor shook the shuttle bay. Sparks showered from damaged conduits, and the lights flickered ominously. The commander's communicator crackled to life. "Sir, structural integrity is failing in sectors 16 through 20. We're losing containment." The Drazak's compound eyes widened in alarm. "That's half the station. How long do we have?" At current rate of deterioration, less than 2 hours before total structural failure. A heavy silence fell over the bay, broken only by the continuous wail of alarms. Zara's mind raced, piecing together everything they'd learned about the nebula's strange energy. "Commander," she said, pushing herself to her feet, "we need to evacuate everyone, but that's not enough. If we don't find a way to neutralize the nebula's effect, it won't just be the station at risk. This could spread to nearby systems, maybe even further." The Drazak turned to her, mandibles twitching in what she'd come to recognize as a sign of intense thought. "What do you propose, human?" Zara took a deep breath. "I have a theory. But to test it, I'll need access to your primary research labs and engineering facilities." And she added, glancing at the pigs huddled nearby, "I'll need their help." The commander was silent for a long moment, his scales shifting through a range of colors. Finally, he nodded sharply. "Do it. I'll clear your access and divert any resources you need. But understand this, human, if you're wrong, if this fails, the consequences will be on your head." Zara met his gaze steadily. "Understood, Commander. Let's get to work." The next hour was a blur of feverish activity, as evacuation procedures kicked into high gear around them. Zara and a team of the station's top scientists raced against time in the main research lab. Clix and several of his kin hovered nearby, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with nervous energy. "Okay, let's go over this one more time," Zara said, her fingers flying over a holographic interface. "The nebula's energy signature is causing a cascading failure in certain molecular structures. But the Pix, they've evolved a natural defense against it." She turned to Clix. "Your bioluminescence, it's not just for communication, is it? It's a form of energy modulation." Clix trilled an affirmative. "Yes, human Zara. Our ancestors used it to navigate the cosmic winds, to ride the currents between stars." A Volcran scientist, her tendrils writhing with excitement, chimed in. "Fascinating. Their biology acts as a natural frequency modulator, allowing them to harmonize with or counteract various energy patterns in space." "Exactly," Zara nodded. "And that's what saved me out there. They were able to extend that protective field around my suit, shielding me from the nebula's effects." She pulled up a diagram of the station's power core. "What if we could replicate that on a massive scale? Use the station's own energy output to create a counter-frequency?" The lab erupted into a flurry of calculations and heated debates. Theories were proposed and discarded rapid-fire as the clock ticked relentlessly onward. All the while, the station shuddered and groaned around them, a constant reminder of the peril they faced. After what felt like an eternity but was barely 30 minutes, a tentative plan began to take shape. It was risky, borderline insane, but it was all they had. "We'll need to modify the station's main deflector array," Zora explained to the commander, who had joined them in the lab. "Reconfigure it to emit a modulated energy pulse based on the Pix's bioluminescent frequency. If we can tune it just right, it should create a protective bubble around the station, neutralizing the nebula's effect." The Drazak's scales rippled with concern. "And if it doesn't work?" Zara's expression was grim. "Best case, nothing happens, and we're back to square one. Worst case, we overload the station's systems and accelerate the structural collapse." A tense silence fell over the lab. Then, unexpectedly, Clix flew forward, landing on the holographic display between Zara and the commander. "We will help," the little alien chirped firmly. "Our energy, combined with your technology. Together, we can do this." The commander's compound eyes studied Clix for a long moment before turning back to Zara. "You have 1 hour, human. Make it count." The engineering bay was a hive of controlled chaos as Zora's hastily assembled team raced to implement their plan. Engineers from a dozen species worked side by side, reconfiguring systems and rerouting power conduits. The Pix flitted between workstations, their bioluminescent bodies providing both light and inspiration. Zara stood at the main control interface, sweat beading on her brow as she coordinated the efforts. power relays are at 87% capacity, she called out. We need at least 95% for this to work. A Tellarite engineer grunted in frustration. We're pushing the systems to their limits already. Any more, and we risk. His words were cut off by a violent tremor that shook the entire bay. Warning klaxons blared as a new wave of alerts flooded the screens. Structural integrity failing in sectors 21 through 25. Someone shouted, "We're losing containment." Zara's heart raced. They were out of time. "We have to do it now," she said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. "It's our only chance." She turned to Clix and the other Picts. "Are you ready?" The alien birds trilled in unison, their bodies beginning to glow with an intensity that rivaled the station's emergency lights. Clix landed on Zora's shoulder, his tiny form radiating warmth and determination. "We are ready, human Zora," he chirped. "Let us show you how the stars sting." Zora took a deep breath and placed her hand on the activation switch. "Here goes everything," she muttered, and threw the lever. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like 1,000 crystal glasses singing in perfect harmony, energy surged through the modified systems. The Pix's bioluminescence pulsed in sync with the rising hum of the deflector array, creating a mesmerizing light show throughout the bay. On the main view screen, Zara watched in awe as a shimmering bubble of energy began to expand from the station's outer hull. It grew rapidly, enveloping the entire structure in a matter of seconds before pushing outward into space. As the energy field made contact with the nebula, the effect was immediate and stunning. The corrosive tendrils of destructive energy recoiled, dissipating like smoke in the wind. Damaged sections of the station began to stabilize, the warnings on Zora's console falling silent one by one. A cheer went up from the engineering team, but Zora hardly heard it. Her focus was entirely on the Redouts, watching in disbelief as the station's systems slowly returned to normal parameters. "We did it," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. "We actually did it." Clix nuzzled against her cheek, his tiny body vibrating with joy. "We did it together, human Zora." As it should be. The celebration was short-lived, however, as the commander's voice crackled over the intercom. "Impressive work, human. But we're not out of danger yet. Report to the main bridge immediately." Zara exchanged a worried glance with Clix before hurrying out of the engineering bay. Whatever was happening, she had a feeling their adventure was far from over. As they made their way through the still chaotic corridors of the station, Zora's mind raced with possibilities. They'd saved the station, yes, but what about the nebula itself? And how would the Galactic Council react to what had happened here? One thing was certain: the universe had just become a whole lot bigger and a whole lot stranger. And humanity, represented by one determined engineer and her unlikely alien allies, was right at the center of it all. Zora grinned despite the uncertainty ahead. Whatever came next, she was ready for it. After all, she was human, and humans had a knack for turning the impossible into just another Tuesday. As the doors to the main bridge slid open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos and the vast, shimmering expanse of the Cerulean Nebula beyond, Zora squared her shoulders and stepped forward. The next chapter of their impossible journey was about to begin. Humanity's impact. The main bridge of Starbase Epsilon was a hive of activity as Zora stepped through the doors, Clix perched firmly on her shoulder. Alien faces from a dozen different species turned to regard them, expressions ranging from awe to suspicion. At the center of it all stood the Drazak commander, his scales shimmering with a complex array of colors. He beckoned Zora forward with a swift gesture. "Engineer Zora," he said, his voice carrying an undercurrent of respect that hadn't been there before. "Your solution appears to have stabilized the station. However, we face a new challenge." He indicated the main view screen, where the Cerulean Nebula pulsed with ethereal light. "The protective field you generated isn't just shielding us, it's expanding." Zora's eyes widened as she took in the data scrolling across nearby consoles. The energy field was indeed growing, pushing back the nebula's corrosive influence at an exponential rate. "This is incredible," she breathed. "We're not just protecting the station. We're actually neutralizing the nebula's harmful effects." A Volcran scientist interjected, her tendrils writhing with excitement. "If this continues, we could potentially render the entire nebula safe for travel and exploration. The scientific possibilities are endless." The commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. Zura had learned, while the potential benefits are significant, we face an immediate diplomatic crisis. The Galactic Council is demanding answers, and several nearby systems are accusing us of unauthorized stellar manipulation. Zara felt a weight settle in her stomach. In the rush to save the station, she hadn't considered the wider political implications of their actions. "What do they want us to do?" she asked, dreading the answer. "They're sending a delegation," the commander replied. "They'll be here within the hour to assess the situation and determine if our actions constitute a violation of interstellar law." A tense silence fell over the bridge. Zara could feel the weight of countless eyes upon her, waiting to see how the human would react. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Right then," she said, her voice steady. "We'd better prepare our case." The next hour was a whirlwind of activity. Zara worked alongside the station's top scientists and diplomats, compiling data and crafting arguments to justify their actions. All the while, Clix and his fellow Picts flitted about, offering insights and encouragement. As the Galactic Council's ship docked with the station, Zara stood in the reception area, her heart pounding. The doors slid open, revealing a delegation of stern-faced aliens representing the Council's major powers. To Zara's surprise, a human stood among them. Ambassador Chen, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. The ambassador's eyes widened slightly upon seeing Zara, a flicker of recognition passing between them. The lead delegate, a towering Arcturian with shimmering crystalline skin, stepped forward. "I am High Counselor Zix. We are here to investigate the unauthorized use of stellar manipulation technology and potential violations of the Galactic Non-Interference Pact." Zara swallowed hard, but before she could speak, Clix suddenly launched himself from her shoulder. The little alien hovered before the delegation, his feathers glowing with a mesmerizing pattern. "Honored counselors," Clix chirped, his voice clear and strong. "Before you pass judgment, we ask that you listen to our story. For what happened here is not just about technology or laws. It is about cooperation, compassion, and the power of working together across the boundaries of species." The delegates exchanged surprised glances. Ambassador Chen stepped forward, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I believe we would all be very interested in hearing this story," she said. What followed was a detailed recounting of the events that had transpired on Starbase Epsilon. Zara, Clix, and others took turns explaining the crisis they had faced and the unconventional solution they had devised. As they spoke, Zara could see the delegates' expressions shifting from skepticism to interest, and finally to something approaching wonder. When they finished, High Counselor Zix was silent for a long moment. "This is unprecedented," he finally said. "Your actions, while unorthodox, appear to have been taken out of necessity and with the noblest of intentions." Ambassador Chen stepped forward. "If I may, High Counselor, I believe what we've witnessed here is a prime example of why humanity was invited to join the galactic community. Our ability to think outside established parameters, to forge unlikely alliances, and to tackle seemingly insurmountable problems with creativity and determination." She gestured to Zara and Clix. "This human and her Pix friend have not only saved countless lives, but potentially opened up an entire region of space for safe exploration. I move that not only should they be cleared of any wrongdoing, but their actions should be commended." A murmur of agreement passed through the delegation. High Counselor Zix's crystalline form shimmered as he considered the proposal. "Very well," he said at last. "Engineer Zara, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I hereby clear you and your associates of any charges related to this incident. Furthermore, we would like to extend an invitation for you to lead a joint research initiative into the phenomena you've discovered here." Zara's jaw dropped. "I thank you, High Counselor. I would be honored." As the formal proceedings concluded and the delegates began to disperse, Ambassador Chen approached Zara with a warm smile. "Well done, Zara," she said quietly. "You've not only saved lives, but potentially changed the course of galactic history. Humanity's reputation for doing the impossible just got a significant boost." Zara chuckled, still somewhat in shock from everything that had transpired. "All in a day's work, I suppose." Clicks, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly piped up. "Human Zara, what happens now?" Zara looked out the nearby viewport, where the Cerulean Nebula shimmered with new possibility. "Now, little buddy. Now we explore. We learn. We keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible." She grinned, a familiar spark of excitement igniting in her chest. After all, that's what humans do best. As news of the events at Starbase Epsilon spread across the galaxy, perceptions began to shift. Humanity, once seen as upstart newcomers, was now viewed with a mixture of fascination and respect. Their reputation for tackling the impossible head-on, for forging unlikely alliances, and finding creative solutions to cosmic-scale problems, grew with each retelling of Zara and Clix's adventure. Research outposts sprang up along the edges of the now-safe Cerulean Nebula. Scientists from 100 worlds worked side by side with Pix guides, unlocking the secrets of the cosmos. And at the heart of it all was the unlikely partnership between a human engineer and a tiny, iridescent alien bird. Zara stood on the observation deck of her new research vessel, Clix perched comfortably on her shoulder. Before them stretched the infinite canvas of space, filled with mysteries waiting to be unraveled. "Where to next, human Zara?" Clix chirped excitedly. Zara grinned, her eyes sparkling with the reflection of distant stars. "Wherever the impossible is waiting to be made possible, little buddy, that's where we're headed." As their ship accelerated into the unknown, Zara couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. In the face of cosmic peril, humanity had once again risen to the challenge. They had reached out across the stars, forged new friendships, and expanded the boundaries of what was thought possible. It was, Zora reflected, just another day in the ongoing adventure of being human in a vast and wondrous universe, and she couldn't wait to see what impossible feat they tackle next. The end.